the visual. If you're at an Italian restaurant, you want to be able to see wines, and you want to be able to smell sauce, and just get that feeling of coming home to an Italian family. That's what you want to have your restaurant be, is the customer comes into it and they are embraced by your brand. All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Food Service Distribution Podcast. As always, I'm your host, David Layton, and today we're going to be talking about restaurant profitability. So the topic of discussion, obviously, over the past 10 to 12 weeks has been the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic, restaurant closures, small business closures, big business bailouts. It's turned into a civil unrest situation. And none of this could have been foreseen or predicted 3 months ago, 3.5 months ago. So it came on fast. It has stuck in the hearts and minds of all business owners in the United States and all over the world, actually. And it has just completely consumed us. So one of the things I wanted to do with this is take a step back and discuss a topic that is always top of mind, or should always be top of mind, replacing all of the outside noise, and that is restaurant profitability. So if you're listening to this, chances are you're out there consuming other content, reading books, subscribing to newsletters, following your market, your industry, and coming up with new and unique ways to apply cost-saving methods to your own business. So some of this might not be new. I think a couple of points might be brand new, or a couple of tactics and methods that I'm going to go over. But for the most part, this is just to recap some main points that you should be focusing in on. Maybe share this with your managers or your crew. Make sure that they're on the same page. You guys are all living the same mission and working towards finding profitability and at least not cutting costs, but shaving unnecessary expenses, and hopefully this sparks something that you can start creatively thinking about your own issues, your own problems, and applying some of this to your own business. So this was really, I had a lot of fun putting this together. I love getting back to the basic blocking and tackling of, know your numbers, know your percentages, that type of thing. So this will be cool to run through. Without any further delay, let's jump into it. Actually, one more further delay. I forgot to say at the beginning, it's the 4th of June. It's Thursday, the 4th of June. It's already June, which is wild. The past 3 months have just gone by so fast, and incredibly slow in certain ways. And that makes sense if you are in the hospitality industry. So now that I've said the date, time-stamped it, let's jump into this. Number one is manage to your percentages, not to your numbers, or not to the dollars. So manage to the percentages and not to the dollar amount. Meaning, especially now, your sales and your food cost and your labor, it's going to fluctuate day to day. It's going to be different. Your top line revenue is going to be different tomorrow than it was today. We're still seeing a lot of volatility. It's calmed down a little bit, but sometimes you might have $5,000 days. Sometimes you might have $8,000 days or $3,000 days, depending on what consumers are thinking about, on what if they're afraid to go out into restaurants, if you haven't already initiated a good takeout or delivery type service for your restaurant. So you want to be able to say, at 6,000, I want to have my food cost for that day at 2,000 and my labor cost at 2,200 or 2,500 or whatever it is, whatever makes sense for your model. So not looking at that $6,000 mark, but looking at that as 100%, and then pulling back from there and not looking at your food cost as 30%. Not looking at it as $2,000, but looking at it as 30%. So just getting in the habit of reviewing what your sales and your labor cost and your overhead and all of that is as a percentage of your overall business rather than a dollar amount. That helps you being able to adjust on the fly, send a server home if needed, get somebody else on if needed, or make adjustments that way. So That's a key piece of information that not only helps with restaurants, but it just helps in general. Me being a distributor, it helps on my side. If I know the general health of my accounts, of my chains, of our segment, by just looking at percentages and saying, this is where we were percentage-wise last week, or this week last year, or last quarter, and are we healthy, or do I need to dig in and get more granular on the numbers? All right, so that's the first piece. Number 2 is to know your menu. That seems basic, but know your menu. Cost your menu. Make sure that you understand where the profit is in your menu. You should always maybe annually go through and make sure that your portion control is accurate, is correct per each item, and make sure that you know that you can point to any item on your menu and be able to say, I have X amount of percentage profit margin there, and this is the most profitable item on the menu, and this is the least profitable. And you should be able to do that off the top of your head, any situation. Anyone who is on the sales side of your business should be able to do that as well. It wouldn't make sense to have, well, I guess anybody on the preparation side also. So anyone front of house or back of house should understand which items are going to have the highest profit margin or which ones they should be focusing on selling. So it has to start at the top, has to start with the manager, the owner, whoever's creating the menu, the chef, and trickle down from there. So in order for everyone to get behind it, you have to have an intimate understanding of your menu, of your numbers. Okay, so cost your menu, make sure you're doing it, and then make sure also, you're costing your ingredients and you're working on portion control, making sure that the portions going out are consistent. It's all a part of that process. Doing some consolidation also to consolidate away from or remove some slower moving items and lower margin items. So you want to move those, average those out over time. And the best way to do that is to always have an understanding of where those higher profit margin and where the lower profit margin items are. Cool. Number 3, leverage your distributor relationship. I know I've talked about this so much in the past. Being a distributor, we understand where the deals are. We understand the rebates and the billbacks. We know where all of the bones are buried, you could say, with vendors and manufacturers and and brokers and how those relationships work. So what you want to do is to best leverage your relationship with your distributor, talk to them. Okay, and ask. Ask, am I getting the best price on this? Is there a comparable item that would be better priced? If we bought more and held on to it, would our increased purchasing power help at all? If you, if you switched brands, this goes more for chains, but if you increase your volume, you're going to usually get a better end price on that product. So if you have multiple locations, make sure they're all using the same product. And really just make sure you're asking those questions and talking about it. Because a lot of the things that, a lot of the time, I should say, restaurants don't realize that their distributor or their multiple distributors that they work with, they have access to private label or distributor branded products. And a lot of the times, most of the time, it's going to be the same product. And the reason why the cost will be lower, being a private label or distributor owned brand, is because of the purchasing power that they have behind it. So a lot of big national brands, and you can really get into this when you start to look at things like, canned tomatoes. Obviously, there's nothing that cuts or competes against a Stanislaus. That's the highest end. But if you're just getting regular diced tomatoes or just canned whole tomatoes, and you don't have a specific flavor profile you're trying to reach, you want to pull that back and go for a private label or a distributor brand. The same would go for other canned goods, for dry products, for produce items, commodity items, packaging. Ask, know what you're asking, talk to your distributor on a regular basis. As much as it's our responsibility as a distributor to go and build a relationship and ask the right questions in order to make your business as successful as it can be, it's your job as an operator, owner, chef, business owner. it's your job to manage that relationship too, and to know what kind of questions to ask. So hopefully this is moving along some of the thoughts that you're having, getting the creative juices going on what is it in my kitchen that I might be able to save some money on. What have I never had a conversation about that I'm just ordering and paying for? Are there other options out there that will work? Those are the questions that you should be asking, should be thinking about. So hopefully that helps. The next one, number 4. Is just about building your team. Okay, so that's not necessarily, that's a much longer term play for reaching a better or higher level of profitability, but you should always be thinking about that. Build the strongest possible team that you can and avoid turnover whenever possible. If you hire the wrong person, you want to get rid of them as quickly as possible, because it's only going to postpone the inevitable, and they could take some of the reputation or some of the business, or drag some people down with them. So there's that situation, but mostly you want to make sure that you are hiring and retaining and training up the right people and building a long-lasting team. So the reason why I even bring up avoiding turnover is it'll cost between, or sometimes up to 2 to 3 times as much to hire and train up somebody in any position, especially if you're thinking about manager or assistant manager type positions. It costs 2 to 3 times more to do that from scratch than to promote the right person from within who's already 60-70% there and just needs to be trained on maybe some managerial skills, or just how to go from a line prep to an assistant sous chef, or whatever that role might be. It's always less expensive to train from within, promote from within. It also gives encouragement to the rest of the team, to the rest of the group, that they have the opportunity to move up, to take more responsibility if they want it, to earn more money if they want it. And yeah, that's pretty simple. This is something that you probably already know, but just always be thinking about that, building and retaining that team rather than bringing somebody from the outside whenever possible, I guess. And think about also think about shaving minutes wherever possible. So that goes along with the same how to save money from a labor standpoint. Is if you have somebody in the back of house making $20 an hour, if you look at that in minutes, that's 33 cents a minute, right? So if you're shaving minutes, if you're working on shaving minutes and shaving wherever you can, that adds up pretty quickly. So a good method, I forget where I heard this, and I really want to give credit where credit is due, but if I can remember, I'll put it in the show notes. But kind of adopt the mentality of going into the kitchen and looking at everything in, minutes, rather than looking at it at a dollar denominated value or amount, right? So instead of looking at instead of looking at your people as this is how much you're paying them per hour, there's 33 cents here, there's 30 cents here, there's 50 cents here, and can you shave that by reducing labor in certain areas? There are going to be different products that you can potentially consolidate, and start thinking about that as being able to shave minutes, shave time, shave what eventually turns into and adds up to dollars. And we're talking about if you shave a little bit, I should have done the math before I jumped into this, but just a little bit every day, an hour here or there, it adds up to tens of thousands of dollars on an annual basis. So think about that. Think every minute is 30 cents or every minute is 50 cents, depending on what you're applying that to, and try to shave minutes wherever you can. All right, number 5, online presence / social media plays a huge role in long-term profitability. And let me explain why. When you are building your brand, and your brand includes all things like your customer promise and your values, your mission, the narrative and the message that you want to get out, the people who work for you, the team you're building, what you guys are doing. When you are building that brand, everything that you're putting out online, whether that be posts on Instagram or content, just menu design that you're posting on your website, if you have any presence on Twitter or any social media, even putting advertisements out, you want it all to tick and tie with how you are trying to connect with your consumer. or your customer. An example of that would be do not sell outside of your brand. So a lot of people will try to, especially right now, will try to figure out a way to bring new customers into their building, and they'll do a 2-for-1 or a heavily discounted dish, something that would be a low cost food item, or just a new menu item they think will attract people in. If it's off brand, don't do it, because you're attracting a customer that's going to expect that type of food, that type of dish, that type of cost, that discount, that 2-for-1 the next time they're there. And if they come and it's not what they expect, or if you just lured people in with a 3-for-2, 2-for-1 kind of deal, and that's not something you normally do, some of those people might get turned off when they come back and see full priced. So be careful when you're doing that. I'm not saying don't run any social media coupons or any percentage discounts, but be careful at the message that you're conveying. So long as it is on brand with what you are normally doing or what you want to do into the future, that's fine. Do it. Okay. A question that you need to ask as you are thinking about your online presence and your social media, that marketing campaign is, who is your target customer, and where are they online? Who are they online? What are they into? What are they going after? And what I mean by that is just focusing your marketing efforts. So if you are primarily trying to appeal to millennials and a younger generation, you're probably going to want to have a presence on Instagram. Make sure that your dishes are on there and there's links through to your menu or your website or where you're located. You might want to be on TikTok. You might have to look for somebody on your team internally or outsource your social media efforts for a lot if you're going to start to get on a lot of different platforms. But those are two good places to be. Not as much with the younger crowd being on Facebook. I feel like if you are trying to attract an older, maybe, my age and older, so 30s to 40s to 50s, you're going to want to have some sort of a Facebook campaign. You might want to have a Twitter campaign. You might want to look at offline media as well. There's not a lot of older folks that are on Instagram and TikTok and some of these younger Generation Z millennial appealing applications. So that's kind of just start thinking about that. Think about where my customers are, who am I trying to go after, and try not to think about the specific demographics per se, but you want to think about the mindsets and where they're going online and what they're expecting, what they're after online. And then make sure that you're engaging with them. So if somebody's commenting, if somebody's liking, maybe try who's liking these photos. Who is commenting, who is following, who have been following your pages and sharing your posts, and that will allow you to see that you are either hitting your target customer or not, and you're way off, and you need to adjust. And if you are hitting your target customer, then look at the analytics behind it. All of these social media sites either have their own analytics, like when I post this YouTube video, it shows me the age, the demographic, the location. Same thing with the podcast too. It shows me all of these things that show the location, and I wish it showed the industry, but shows some of the analytics behind who is watching and who is consuming this content and who's consuming your content and liking your videos. So if you're getting the target crowd to like the videos and to watch or to like the posts and to comment, then you're doing something right and continue doing that. If not, then adjust. If the platform you're using does not have their own analytics, there's usually a third-party website or a third-party platform that can help you analyze who's looking at it. It was an example that comes to mind is when I use Twitter. I use a third party that shows if somebody is, just out of curiosity, if somebody is shadow banned or if there's any restrictions on the account or if they have access to send content and post content to tweet to everyone. It's just interesting. I like going behind the scenes and seeing what types of posts are going to which types of people, and it's fun to take a look at that stuff. All right, so the last thing that I'll say on that actually is when you're engaging with customers, what's included in that and what's included in the online presence. in that campaign is Yelp reviews. So you want to make sure, obviously, you're on Yelp. Your business is set up on Yelp. Good or bad, no matter what the review is, make sure that you're engaging quickly. And if it's a bad review, that you're solving the problem. Hopefully, nobody's trying to take advantage of posting a bad review and then you say, hey, come in and get some free food or we'll make it right. But always try to approach that type of review with empathy and a solution, and see if you can get them back in to try your product or business or food again. And if it's good, make sure you say, hey, thank you, awesome. And maybe every now and then say, thanks for the awesome review. Come in and we'll give you a 2-for-1 or a free drink or whatever it is. So constant engagement and giving people, make sure that people feel like they're incentivized and they're being heard whenever they are engaging with you and your business online. All right, number 6, here we go. Customer loyalty. Obviously, that's going to play into profitability substantially. You want to make sure that you are bringing back repeat business. That is the make or break for any restaurant, especially, is if somebody loves it and they're going to go tell their friends and then they're going to return, hopefully with their friends. But what goes along with customer loyalty is the concept of brand positioning. And I already kind of touched on it and talked about it for a little bit, but you should always be able to identify. I would even argue that most, if not all, of the people in your organization should be able to identify your values, your promises, your mission, your customers' expectations, what who the core customer is. So same thing, to go back to not the demographics, but the mindset of who your customer is. Everyone should be able to, especially you, should be able to identify who that core customer is, and everything that you guys believe in and you bleed day to day should be baked into your brand and should be visible within your brand, right? So the things that must, no matter what, be on brand are the menu, from the items to the menu design, the decor of the restaurant or the decor setup, I say decor with quotes, of the website and of the social media. Make sure that you have the same background banners. Make sure that you have all of the same typography, the same fonts, a lot of the same color theme and all of that. Make sure that all of that is on brand. The messaging that you have, make sure it's consistent. If you're doing all of your social media and you're doing all of your in-house marketing also, make sure that it's all the same. You don't want two people with two different visions, or maybe hiring an outside third-party service to do just the online presence while you're giving your customers a different experience and different messaging, a different type of narrative inside the restaurant. There's conflict there. You don't want to do that because people get confused. What is this brand about? I don't really know what they're into. I just know they have good food, and maybe I'll go back there. But you want to attract people to the brand, to the mission, the messaging, the narrative, and you want it to be consistent so they know what they're going to get and how they're going to feel, most importantly. All right, so team members, that's the other thing too. You want to make sure you're hiring not same type of person, but just a person that can get behind the mission, to get behind that type of messaging and be a strong representative of your brand. All right. An example of, thinking about menu items and thinking about making sure that the menu is on brand. An example is if you are positioned as a locally sourced, regional restaurant or group of restaurants, you could name a menu item off of or name it after some sort of a place of interest locally. So we have a lot of local interests here in Washington State. There's Puget Sound, Mount Rainier, the Olympics. There's all different types of, we have, Snoqualmie Pass. There's a lot of different passes. And I am getting a call right now that I need to take. So pause for 5 seconds. All right, sorry for that interruption there. I'm going to use that actually as an opportunity to play my advertisement, my Anchor sponsor advertisement. So perfect break. Now I'm going to jump back in. I was in the middle of number 6, customer loyalty / brand positioning. And I was talking about making sure that you are on brand, able to identify your values, promise, mission, customer expectations, core customer, all of that, making sure that the menu, the decor, the narrative, everything aligns, because you want to be consistent. And I believe I just jumped into the examples. So an example is if you are, fresh, healthy, local, advertise it. Put a menu item as the name of a local farm. All right, call it the Johnson Burger or whatever the local farm is. Make sure that you are building into and leaning into that brand. Of course, that only works if it's fresh, local, healthy, focusing on fresh and local. As much as it is important to stay with menu items and decor and design and all of that on brand, make sure you are avoiding doing something that is off-brand just for the benefit of trying to turn a profit. An example would be if you are a health restaurant or focusing more on a younger, healthier crowd, you don't want to do a chili fries Friday because potatoes have high profit margin. You want to avoid doing something that your distributor or a vendor is recommending. Hey, try these new, chili fries is a great example. It's just French fries, deep fried French fries with, chili, probably, fried in canola oil and things that you are not that will not appeal to a younger, healthier crowd. You don't have to take all of those new items, and you don't have to look at something that has 80% profit margin and say, we'll run a special on that. So stay on brand. That's the key takeaway from there. The entire experience, this is the last thing I'll say on brand, the entire experience that somebody has needs to be a accurate representation of your brand and that messaging and that narrative that you're trying to get through to your customer. And that is inside and outside. So you want a clean parking lot, you want a clean lobby, you want to make sure that there's the smell of whatever you are cooking in the air, not cleaning supplies or not the smell of nothing. You want something enticing. The visual, if you're at an Italian restaurant, you want to be able to see wines and you want to be able to smell sauce and just get that feeling of coming home to an Italian family. That's what you want to have your restaurant be, is the customer comes into it and they are embraced by your brand. All right. Use names also wherever you can. This is more of a tactic that helps people feel like they're more at home. The most attractive word in the human language, or in the English language, to any human being is their own name. All right, so lean into that psychology, and when you get somebody's order, ask what their name is, and then call out their name when it's ready. Depending on the style of restaurant, I know it doesn't work for everyone, but whenever you can, learn somebody's name and use it. That's going to help them feel like they are home, like they are there, like they're welcome, and being appreciated as a customer to that establishment. This just popped into my head. There was a restaurant that I never actually opened it. I used to dine there when I was working for a past distributor back in Colorado. It was actually called the Stillwater Grill up in Grand County, Colorado. And the chef the executive chef / owner, CEO, JC, his name is Jean-Claude. I'm sure he's still there. He's an incredible guy, but he knew my name because I went in to call on them on certain occasions. He was very happy with the distributor they had. I didn't call on him for too long. They didn't want to change anything, but he was so respectful and I remember always called me by my name, always said David. Hello, David. David, how's it going? And it made me feel welcome, even though, I wasn't in a business relationship there. I always felt welcome. And I liked to go and dine at places that I did not have open as an account, as a customer, just as much as I liked dining at my customers. So I would bring friends there. I would bring family there. We'd bring people from out of town. It was a nice restaurant. It is still a really nice restaurant right off of the lake between Shadow Mountain and Lake Granby. Beautiful place. And it's because he always welcomed me and used my name and would offer a sample cheese platter or something like that when we came in, was genuinely excited to see me in the group. So that's a great example and just something that sticks out in my head. I was just trying to think of where in the past have I felt welcome. That's an example, and it's because of the use of the name and the appreciation. All right, number 7. This is a little counterintuitive, but the thought is to consolidate your menu while adding items. I know that sounds weird, it's super counterintuitive, but you want to consolidate items away from the items that are not selling well and you want to avoid the decision fatigue that goes along with somebody looking at an extensive menu. If you've ever been into like a Cheesecake Factory or a BJ's, places that have these huge books, these food bibles instead of menus, and the food is great. I don't have anything bad to say about places like that, but I always suffer from some sort of decision fatigue while I'm there. So you want to try and reduce that. So you can, take a look at one page or 2 pages, whatever. Just not too much, not too overwhelming. And make sure that most of the items there are going to be high profit, high selling items. But at the same time, you are going to want to run new items, whether it be specials or just new menu items on a regular basis. So try to reduce the decision fatigue by consolidating your menu. But always have a new choice, whether it just be 1 or 2 or 3. It could come in the form of a drink special, or a new cocktail mix, something that is going to be appealing to new customers and appealing to your return customers. So try to consolidate, reduce decision fatigue while giving new offerings that make sense. Another part of this that just kind of stands out, that's I wasn't really quite sure where to put this along these 8 points, is food photography. So that's actually huge to have photographs, whether they're on the menu, on some sort of a digital display, on your website if you are more of a takeout or delivery. To have photographs, professionally done photographs or really nicely done photographs of the higher profit margin items that you want to sell. And then of course encourage your servers and your managers and the people that are going to be on the selling side to push those items. Now again, same example with the chili fries or chili dog or something like that. You could have things with potatoes or things with certain items that are high profit margin that aren't going to be aesthetically pleasing or that aren't going to be your best item. If it's not on brand, it's best to avoid that, but you definitely want to find those higher profit margin items that look good, that photograph well, and make sure that people can see them. People eat with their eyes. They order with their eyes. If they see something that comes out on a plate that looks good, I know that a lot of people are guilty of doing this with drinks. If you see a big, blue drink with a straw, you're kind of curious, what is that? Should I order that? So people eat with their eyes. Make sure that you have, if you do have photographs, they're high profit margin items, your servers are pushing it, and they're photographed nicely. All right, here we go. Very last one, number 8. You're doing it right now. Stay current on industry, markets, trends, competition even. Stay current on what is happening around you. It's so easy to get so lost in your business. Me too. It's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day of managing accounts, working with my team, working with operations, doing everything that we're doing, and it sometimes I'll not be paying attention to what our competitors are doing, or I won't have time to read newsletters, or I'll miss a key piece of information about the CARES Act or something that supports small businesses. So it's always good to consume content. And I know you might be saying, I don't have time. I'm running a business here, or I'm designing a menu. I don't have time to figure out what else is going on. And that's why you leverage people like me or people like distributors that are paying attention to what's happening in the industries and consuming that content. And for the record, you're doing it right now. You're listening to a podcast. I took hours today to consolidate my top 8 thoughts on profitability in restaurants into a quick, I think this will be 30 minutes long. You can listen to it in 2x on Spotify or on any of your, on Applecasts. And that's 15 minutes of getting all of these new ideas or trying to think through creative solutions. 15 minutes, and I packaged it up and put a bow on it and handed it to you. There are other resources that are just as good, if not better than my podcast here. 2 of those that I wanted to call out: QSR Fast Forward. That's Sam Oakes or Oches. Sam, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry I've butchered your name several times, but Sam over at QSR's Fast Forward is fantastic. That's become a staple. I've subscribed to it. I listen to all of those. And then the second one, Eric Cassiatori, has Restaurant Unstoppable. And both of those are more focused on interviewing chefs. QSR is more CEOs and chains and the quick service restaurants, high level, what's going on in the industry. Eric's Restaurant Unstoppable is more interviews with chefs, and he's done some with experts on consulting, and a lot of it is more one-off restaurants, what people are doing. Lately, he's had a COVID series. He's done like 50 or 60 episodes just based off of, I think he calls it Corona Chronicles, and it's amazing. He's going around talking to chefs, business owners, and it's very, very restaurant focused. So as far as I can find, I think I'm the only one doing a restaurant distribution, from the perspective of a distributor. If that's not the case, if you have another recommendation of someone doing just what I'm doing, let me know, because I love podcasts and I love distilling information. I listen to it on 2X. I listen to it every time I work out or run, and just consuming content through podcasts is incredibly important to me and my knowledge. It will be to you also. So do it. That's number one. Number two, industry-specific newsletters. A couple that come to mind. National Restaurant News, QSR Magazine. Get subscribed to something that's regional. We have the Puget Sound Business Journal. There are, depending on what region, what location you're in, you have some sort of a local business magazine or newsletter that you can subscribe to. They can probably even shoot you a morning email. It would take maybe 10 minutes to read, and you'll get a better understanding of what's happening in your industry. There's always focus on restaurants, especially right now, and focus on small business and what laws are changing, what's happening, what policies might be changing, what people are thinking. And it's always good to try and stay up on the industry-specific newsletters also. Books, audiobooks. Obviously, those are longer publications that don't change and they don't keep you up to speed and up to date. But I'll put a link to something that I found recently. I was trying to figure out the top restaurant related, maybe restaurant management type books, things that people have written recently or written 30 years ago. I have a few books, food politics. There's some stuff that is more on the business side or on the supply chain side, which I've always been interested in. But there's one that comes to mind if you're not into the business component, or you don't want to learn about, the farming and the agriculture, the supply chain, or the business management side. Anthony Bourdain, if anybody remembers, he started his career, as a chef. I think he was about 20 years into his career, while he was working at and owned a restaurant out in Tokyo. He wrote his Kitchen Confidential book, which kind of launched his career into the spotlight of being this, chef who also was incredibly articulate and had a perspective of the back of house food industry that not a lot of people did. So that obviously led into his very, very popular travel show. So there's an example, something that's entertaining and about the restaurant industry. There's lots of resources, books, and audiobooks for you chefs, owners, operators that need to hear something on the go. Audiobooks, they're fantastic. The last one is Twitter. Twitter is live, it's up to date, and if you want an example of who to follow and what people are doing, go on to Twitter and look at my page. I pretty much just post thoughts about the industry, not a lot of incredible content, but the people who I follow on Twitter, go on to @foodservicepod. Look at who I'm following. Pretty much anybody who is a food blogger, who owns restaurant chains and is on Twitter posting about that kind of thing. All of these publications, the QSR Magazine, National Restaurant News, they are all on Twitter and keeping me and other people who are subscribed up to date with what they're thinking about, the breaking news. Same thing with the PPP and CARES Act and all of the stuff that's happening and changing in our industry. People are talking about it, and that's been an absolutely incredible resource for restaurant and hospitality related topics and other things. So you'll probably see some other, business and investing and other things that I'm interested in there too. And it's just an incredible pool of some of the top experts in the world in different industries. So highly suggest go on Twitter. While you're there, give me a follow. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for watching this. If you got anything out of this, if you found value, like the video, subscribe to it, shoot me some questions. You can shoot me comments here and share it. also. That's the other piece. I do this to try and help people get an idea of how to make their business more profitable at the end of the day. So this is a perfect, summary of a lot of the things that I'm thinking about and why I'm making this. The other side of this project, of course, is for distributors to come on and say, what are other distributors thinking about, and what are they doing? What are they going through? What are their challenges? What are their solutions? So thanks. That's it. If you want a recommended video, I'm going to finish this the same way as I always do. I'll put it up here, and then you can subscribe right here. That's it. That's all I got for you. Remember to get outside and tip your waitress.